All right, hello
People rarely
everyone.
ever do.
Yeah, they don't. People don't think enough. Stay tuned for our TED Talk next week about faces. All right, hello everyone, and welcome to episode 56 of the GGG Podcast. I'm Paul. Over here joining me is Phil. We got a great episode for you today. Lots of live service news today, so that's pretty interesting. And we're going to talk about Warcraft's 30th anniversary that is today. Yes, you heard that right. Warcraft's 30th anniversary, in case you weren't feeling old enough. So that's interesting. But before
at least it's not World of Warcraft's 30th anniversary.
Yeah.
That would make me... I thought that's what it was for a second, and I was like, oh, wait, am I 59? That's not how old I'll even be. It's sooner than that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. When did World of Warcraft originally come out? Do you know the year? You looked that up.
It's got to be like 2003. World.
All right.
Let's see.
You looked that up. In the meantime, if you haven't already liked and subscribed to our podcast, please do so on our YouTube channel. And if you're listening to the audio-only version on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, follow us over there as well. All right, Phil, what year did World of Warcraft release?
Well, it's November 23rd of 2004. So it has been 20 years in a couple of days.
Oh, my God.
World of Warcraft, which is terrifying to think about.
For those kids out there who don't know what World of Warcraft is, which could be a good chunk of people.
Hey, very, very important update for the podcast. One of my toes just turned to dust and fell away because I am aging at such an incredible rate after having learned that information.
Yeah. Oh my God. That was a full mental Thanos snap regarding my age. All right. Phil, have you had an opportunity this week to play some video games? I saw you streaming yesterday, playing some Magic the Gathering Arena. How was that experience?
It's a good time to be playing Magic because they just came up with this new set called Foundations, and it's all like the basic rules of Magic. So it's all these new cards, but all like for very beginner like play. And it doesn't get too complex, doesn't get too crazy, so it's a great time to like really get in there and mess with some new cards. But outside of that, I was also able to get some time in with Dragon Age, less than I'd like, and Metal Slug Tactics did pop up on Game Pass. I'm so happy I didn't buy it when we were talking about it on the pod, because I was this close, and then next day it was free. So
awesome. That's great.
Restraint plus Game Pass. But yeah, no, that's a really fun and interesting game. There's a lot of like weird tactics that tie into it. Like, you know, when you play a new video game for the first time, you just click through a tutorial because I know how to play a game. I press button. This one tells you a lot of cool stuff that I ended up figuring out over like the course of several missions. But super, super fun, and I'm excited to play more of it. Paul, what have you got to play this week?
Kind of a wide variety of things. I got back into Frostpunk again. Had another Frostpunk day. I was playing Frostpunk on my PC, and then next to my computer, I had a laptop where I was watching Snowpiercer, and then I turned the air conditioning on and put an overcoat on, so I was just fully immersed in freezing.
There you go.
Here in Los Angeles. So I had a day with that. I played like one round of Helldivers and Space Marine. Got online with some friends, and we just revisited that a bit. But then just a lot of Dragon Age. Too much. Maybe, perhaps. But yeah, I've been playing a lot of Dragon Age, and I feel like I'm in the final leg of the game.
Nice.
So I know the max level is 50, and I think I'm level 45 right now. So yeah, it's really good. Like I still really, really like the game. I do kind of see what some reviewers are talking about when you get to the last leg of the game, where you're just like, all right, like I get it. And I think that getting to that last leg of the game is also you start. I don't know if maybe it's just because I'm looking for it now, but you start to see like the bones of a live service game as it was originally intended, where it's like what I figured out is that the mission structure really, it's not classic RPG mission structure, because all of the missions in Dragon Age are like either go have a conversation, if where it's like a companion conversation or like a short companion mission, or it's like go and fight a bunch of stuff. And that tells me, it's like, oh yeah, that makes it, that's what Suicide Squad is, or that's what Marvel's Avengers was, where it's like it's about like going in the dungeon, killing a bunch of stuff, or like Diablo is. And so I think like it probably wouldn't be as obvious if I didn't know that and I wasn't looking for it, but now having that awareness, it does make me wish that there were some other missions that were like, hey, help out the NPCs in this town and see this town get better, and stuff like that just never really happens. So
sneak around, do something. Yeah, there's not really any too much variety. I think the combat is good enough to kind of cover that.
It is
a certain amount of time.
Yeah, but the combat is stellar. So it's the best combat that has ever been in Dragon Age, and so I think it's similar. We talked about it for our main topic last week, but like it's simplified to a point where it's awesome and I'm really going to get through it, but it doesn't take any risks. It doesn't feel like this is The Witcher 3 or something like that. But I see a lot of people comparing it to The Witcher 3, and I'm like, I think The Witcher 3 is like the best RPG of all time, and so it's hard to compare a game to what you consider is like the RPG GOAT. So yeah,
I feel like an apt comparison is like the D&D movie. This is like the D&D movie versus Baldur's Gate for me, which would be like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, where there's just like a lot of it. It's all very deep. It's all very like, it's very granular comparatively. But the D&D movie, you pop that in and you're like, man, I'll watch this anytime it's on TBS.
It's a good time. It's a good time.
Yeah.
I was really surprised with how good the movie was, to be honest. All right. Well, let's press forward into the show. So we got one major game release, one we've been talking about periodically over the last couple months, and that is Lego Horizon Adventures, the game we have, clearly put as a front runner for Game of the Year. Phil, do you think, how does this stand next to Astrobot and Helldivers?
Well, Astrobot can now eat the crap right off the bottom of my boot, because I've gotten the joy of playing through the story of Horizon again, but as little plastic Lego pieces. Mess me up, mama. That's what I like to say to Aloy. No, I'm not going to play this, and I don't think other people should. No, if you want to play this, you should play this.
It's a kid's game. It's a kid's game.
It's a kid's game.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that, but
nothing wrong with it. I feel like Sony is trying to make fetch happen in a way that, like, listen, Horizon is great. You don't need to put it in everything. Horizon's great. Don't put it in everything. But yeah, it's running about a 71 on Metacritic right now, which is pretty good. I think in terms of like a kid game, if you want to get them into, like, if you have a kid who loves dinosaurs and loves like sci-fi, great for them. Probably the perfect thing.
Yeah.
But I think for me, just a puzzling, why did we do this one?
Yeah. Money. And kids game for Christmas, and them being able to say, well, we released another first-party game this year, even though we were light on first-party games, even though this is a game that's available on all platforms. So I've tried to go through and just watch some gameplay of it, because I feel like I've only seen this in like trailers. So like, I think it looks like if people are into Lego games, I think that that's great. But I think that a lot of the Lego games have found success because they've attached themselves to like a heavy hitter, like through licensing, where it's like it's Lego Lord of the Rings, it's Lego Star Wars, and Lego Horizon is like, I really like the Horizon franchise, I do, but it's not at the level of franchise that Star Wars or Lord of the Rings are at. So I don't know. I think it'll be very telling once we get some sales numbers and see if this game actually has an audience that we are just not privy to. So
yeah.
But something that does have an audience that we are privy to is one of your most anticipated games of the year, Phil. A game that we streamed a few months back, and that is Marvel Rivals. Kind of going gold, sort of, but it is to not be delayed. It is coming out December 6th. It's getting some final touches, and IGN had an interview with some of the developers, and basically the game is done. They're really just focusing on balancing right now. And so, one, are you excited about this game releasing? And two, since they are working on the balancing in Marvel Rivals, was there anything that you noticed in the beta that you thought specifically needed to be balanced or changed or anything like that?
I think maybe some of Scarlet Witch's like auto aim stuff was a little bit powerful for what it was. But outside of that, I mean, you know what? I would love to see Jeff the Land Shark become a little bit stronger. But outside of that, I don't think that. I feel like the game was already in such a good place. Like, I think a lot of games would have killed to have launched where Marvel Rivals was at its beta, and it was not perfect at its beta, but there was still a lot of like, it was just mostly put together at that point. Like, I think maybe because the bar has been lowered, I was like, oh yeah, this works. This is great. In terms of balance, I wonder if they're just working on like, how do we fit in? Because it seems like they've already announced 2 more characters that we're going to see, or 3 more characters that weren't in the beta. With Captain America, Bucky, and Moon Knight. That might actually even be someone else. But I feel like the balancing they're working on is just adding all these new characters to it. And yeah, I think that this is like the right place that a game should be at a month before launching, especially a live service game and one that is free to play. They are putting in so much time and effort. Not to say that big games don't, but they're like really taking the time to. The game is pretty much done. Let's just like let it cook for a little while longer, so that when it comes out, it is fully working, not to be messed with, not to be like, because that launch window, while it is not impossible to come back from, it is so important, and I think investors see that and see like, oh, people stopped playing. So really just coming in with a strong launch is something that will make this like a Fortnite or hopefully like a stronger Overwatch.
Yeah, I mean, it is Overwatch.
It is over, but with characters that we love and not just want to doink like most of the internet.
It's very true. It's true. It's true.
That's what that's what they designed.
It is true. I mean, from the interview that IGN had, a lot of the balancing they talked about was actually in relation to team composition, because obviously there are some characters that if you team up, they get passive bonuses or active bonuses. Like if you have Groot and Rocket in the game, Rocket can actually ride on Groot, as classic Guardians of the Galaxy would do. And so they're trying to figure out the balancing of like teams that are like, we're going to play as the Avengers team where we get the Avengers bonus. But if they are playing against a team that did not team comp at all, how does that work? And
balance out. Yeah,
exactly. And so does team comping need to be essential to winning in a game? And I think the way it kind of sounded like the interview was going is like, if you're playing ranked, you probably need to factor that in like, we need to be playing like, all right, these are the defenders, and so we need a Daredevil and a Luke Cage, and those characters aren't in the game yet, but you know what I mean. So
well, I think if that's going to be the case, I have to just make sure that all the teams, at least with their release schedule, have the same amount of team members.
Yeah,
because like playing as a full Spider Squad or something,
Right.
Versus where there's only like 3 of them, and then you have like a full X-Men team where there's 5 and they all get passive bonuses. So I think
Yeah.
that is they just need to work on the caps on those.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's the type of consideration they're doing over there. They're really in it.
They're breaking it
They
down.
got that Marvel money.
The Marvel money. All right. Speaking of money, Fortnite original is coming back, and it is here to stay. So a couple seasons ago in Fortnite, they brought back the classic map, classic Fortnite. People were really into it. You had 18-year-olds experiencing nostalgia, which was a little weird. But yeah.
They shouldn't be old enough for that feeling yet.
Exactly, but they were. So...
You don't get that now. I'm so sorry. You know what? The world's aged them plenty at this point. Go for it, kids. Enjoy.
Yeah, but it turns out that was so popular that Fortnite has officially decided to have Fortnite Classic or Fortnite Original just in the game permanently to stay. And it's actually going to be coming out the exact same day as Marvel Rivals, and that is December 6th. So I think that, we're going to continue to talk about this through this podcast episode, but I think this is a trend that we're starting to see where it's like, hey, if we can add back in a classic mode that we know worked, because as a live service, everything is changing so much over time because we got to keep the ball rolling. And so it's nice to be able to go back to what the OG version was. I mean, this is great for Fortnite fans. I don't know how many more gigabytes it's going to add to the download, but Fortnite is not a big download in the first place, as far as I remember.
Yeah.
So I don't know. This is just a win for the fans, as far as I can tell. Do you have any other thoughts on it?
I do. I think that it's very interesting. A lot of the times, like with live services, it can feel like, oh, there's no going back to playing this match or this map in Fortnite, or like when there were mechs in the game.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really fun time that only existed at that moment in time, which kind of invites you to play it seasonally and really get a feel for what they're doing. But I think there is something about, like, if you don't like the new Star Wars,
Right.
one of my favorite things, like, well, just go watch the old ones. Like, you can go do that at any point.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that with these games. Like, the preservation aspect of it is, I think, really cool, that you can go back and play original Fortnite. And hopefully they will eventually get to the point where it's like, you can play this season, you can play that season, and you can see how many people are playing each or whatever. But just to give us, like, this game that we all fell in love with at different times and in different ways, like a different way to engage with that versus just playing it the way it is now, which I think is great. But it's just interesting to see that they have it. Also, if you get the files, just put it up there. It's already a free-to-play game. Let people have fun. Enjoy.
Yeah, this really reminds me of Destiny 2, when they like took out the original campaign and like took content out of the game. And I do understand, like, Destiny is a bigger game, a bigger in like file size than Fortnite. But it is just kind of like, you should give people the option. If you already made it and they paid for it, especially because like, I know Fortnite's free to play, so there's some, did they pay for specific things, so skins and whatnot, obviously, but like in Destiny, that's something that I feel like Bungie really missed the mark with. It's like, yeah, if you're trying to save space, then give people the option. Did not download the original campaign, but like the fact that I can't make a new character and play through that is really weird. And I don't know who pulled the trigger on that decision. So I'm glad to see some other companies are taking that in a different direction. So that's great. Speaking of a different direction, next up on the news, so we got some classic PlayStation games that I played as a little baby, coming to Xbox Game Pass. So this is very surreal for me personally. But in particularly, the Spyro Reignited trilogy is coming to Game Pass, as well as some Crash Bandicoot games, which is... I don't know if you were old enough to remember Crash Bandicoot commercials, Phil. I thought they were hilarious. It was like the Tony Hawk era And so,
Everything was so punk rock.
Everything was punk
and Jackass adjacent.
Yes, and Jackass adjacent. That's a great way of describing it. So, like, this is really weird to me. Like, these franchises have been owned by Activision for quite some time, and obviously with the acquisition of Activision, Microsoft is taking advantage of this. But these Crash Bandicoot and Spyro just feel so PlayStation to me, and I'll never be able to shake that. And it's so weird that it's coming for free on Xbox Game Pass. It's bewildering. Did you play those games when you were young?
No, I think I was a Sega kid until the PlayStation 3 when I joined up.
Mm-hmm. You enlisted.
But I will say I remember like playing those games and always having a good time being like, wow, this is amazing that this like exists out there, but I don't have access to it because I'm playing on a Dreamcast.
Right.
That said, these games came out for because Activision, I guess, re-released them a couple years ago, like the Insane Trilogy and Crash 4 and Spyro Reignited.
Right.
And it's just it was crazy to see them like, oh, these were 100% part of the PlayStation ecosystem and like on the box with the PlayStation, and to see it on an Xbox was just strange. And now to see it like Xbox being like, here, it's free, is a little strange. That said, we are approaching the future where Halo probably going to pop up on the PlayStation 5 because they would like to sell more than 6 units of the game. So we are living in unprecedented times when it comes to the console wars. Do you think, this is a big question, I guess, jumping off this, do you think console wars are in a sense over? It's way early to say that, but
I mean, I think the answer is kind of within the question in that, like, when you describe a war, it's only a war if there's peacetime. And I think we are in a peacetime era. And so I think that the factions of the war are like, I think Xbox has removed themselves from it. And you can interpret that as surrendering or whatever, however you want, but as they are transitioning into a publisher now, and we've talked about that a lot, and so who's left on the board? It's really Sony and Nintendo, and the market is now big enough that they don't have to compete for the market because they both have their separate corners of the market, where it's like Sony is mostly for older gamers or teenagers and whatnot.
They're focused on single player
hardcore experiences, adult gamers. Nintendo has those as well, but it's like Nintendo, it's like we stick to our franchises, we stick to selling Switches to the younger generations and younger audiences. And that doesn't mean older gamers can't get in on that, but that's just not their focus. So it's like, if we have an older gamer who's playing Nintendo games, it's because he played them when he was younger and he's carrying over. So I think if there is to be another console war, we need another company to step in and try to steal some market, either from Nintendo or Sony. I don't really see that happening to Nintendo because they remain like undefeated. So
they're doing their own thing. They're fighting God on an island far, far away, and my friend, they are winning. And PlayStation is like holding Xbox's head down in the dirt. They're looking up. There's like, honestly, we don't know what's going on over there, but we're just happy with the situation.
Right.
And the PC Master Race is pulling the strings behind everything and just getting all of the games.
Exactly.
But if we want to talk about a new contender, what about cloud gaming and specifically GeForce?
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, transition. Like, it's not a console per se, like but yeah, so GeForce Now is in the news this week with some major changes coming to their pricing and their platform. And for those out there who don't actually know what GeForce Now is, it is it's NVIDIA's cloud streaming service. It's kind of like Game Pass, sort of, where it's you're streaming a game and you're actually playing it on somebody else's computer. And so if you don't have a powerful rig yourself, or you're playing on like a laptop, I think is probably the optimal way to use GeForce Now, or like a Microsoft Surface or something like that. You can just stream the game instead of demanding that your work laptop actually can run Elden Ring. So yeah, I think it's a good concept. My girlfriend's used GeForce Now before she had a gaming PC. So I think it's a great alternative for people on tighter budgets. But yeah, they are getting a rework of their pricing, and so there are tiers of pricing, as there are in most subscription services, but now the lowest tier of their service will be limited to streaming 100 hours of gameplay per month. But there are weird rules that they're building into this, where it's like, oh, if you don't use all 100 hours, 15 hours of those will roll over into the next month, and if you go over 100 hours, you will be charged extra. And it kind of feels like, it reminds me of like a cell phone plan a little bit.
Having minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Like an old, like 2000 cell phone plan, data and minutes and all that stuff. And it does feel a little weird, but to me, if you're at the point that you're using GeForce Now for over 100 hours a month, like, I think that NVIDIA is well within their right to be like, yeah, we need to charge more for this. Because
hey, must be nice to have that kind of time, am I right? I wish that I had time to play games for 100 hours. That time now is strictly devoted to scrolling on my phone. But I think that's a pretty fair agreement. Like 100 hours in a month does seem like the breakdown would be like 3 hours a day, something like that, just a little bit nearabouts there, 3.5 hours a day, every day of the month, which I think is, unless you are the type of child that I was and homeschool, that was not something that you had the capacity to do. So I think it seems pretty fair, and obviously if there are different tiers to it, then you can. If you're one of these power gamers, go nuts and get the ultimate and have like unlimited,
Yeah, so like the unlimited version is $19.99 a month. So it's just like, that's pretty reasonable. The performance edition, where you are limited to the 100 hours, is $10 a month. So it's like, realistically, that's a very reasonable price if you're actually spending that much time doing it. I was telling Phil before we were recording, this kind of reminds me of the guy who abuses the buffet. It's just like, if you go into a buffet and you slam 3 pizzas all by yourself, I think the buffet has grounds to ask you to leave. It's like, I get, like, they do sell all you can eat, but like, one person should not be eating 3 pizzas on their own. So
it's called Hungry Howie's, not a black hole, you monster. Get out of our store. Don't make me get Howie down here.
Yeah. So just So all right. Well, let's press right along. So Phil, we're getting some reports. Xbox is planning on making a handheld device. What do we got on this?
Yeah, there have been rumors in the dark for a long time about Xbox trying to make themselves a handheld console, being interested in the space, but never really anything concrete. It's always like insider gossip here, this and that. And what it would be exactly is kind of up for contention. But recently, word got out from Xbox that, yes, they are planning on making a handheld, but they just don't know when it's going to happen. But it is like as close to a certainty as Xbox can say, like, yes, we are going to make a handheld eventually. We just don't have a release window. We don't have plans. We don't have specs to share with you. So I'm assuming it would be a sort of cloud gaming device as well,
Yeah.
sort of similar to the Portal,
Mhm.
because I feel like that is the future. Like as Wi-Fi gets better, as remote computing gets better, this just seems like kind of a no-brainer for them to make something that would very easily be able to be played on the go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is like, again, not Xbox trying to get into the console war as much as them just trying to expand Game Pass and like the way that people have access to games. I do have a weird bet, and this is also kind of a non sequitur, but I feel like Xbox is going to change its name to Game Pass in some point in the future of just being like, we're just the place where you go play
Yeah.
games. Don't worry about it,
I can agree with that. Yeah. If there's no box, then it's just Game Pass. Yeah, I kind of see this as they release a device that is the Game Pass device. That it is purely like you buy it and you get 6 months of Game Pass for free, and it's all about streaming. Because like I feel like we saw a lot of other people compete for this handheld Steam Deck market, and I feel like a lot of companies really failed to move units. Sure, the super hardcore wealthy gamers and streamers and whatnot, they're able to buy those things, but the average gamer is not spending $1,000 on a handheld PC. And like I think the Portal really surprised the entire market in how well it did, and also how well it performs. I was at a friend's house last night who also has a PlayStation Portal, and I was talking to him about playing Dragon Age on my Portal and how it's a great game to play on it. And like he was talking about like how he couldn't believe the lack of latency that is there. And I think we're finally getting to the point, at least if your PlayStation 5 is hardwired into your internet connection, like unless you're downloading something, like you can really, like I can really just play whatever. Like if I'm playing online games, maybe there's some little bit of a delay, not even a delay, because I think because you don't have a Portal, do you, Phil?
No, I don't.
So I guess like the way that it works is instead of delaying the game or like stopping, it just lowers the resolution as a way to fight latency. And so which I prefer. So it's like, yeah, it could get like fuzzy in a moment as a way to catch up with itself, but I much prefer that to like lag.
That's better than like
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. And so I think, and if Microsoft's going to sit on this for a while, I think they got some time to figure out to even navigate those issues. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think it's definitely going to be a streaming device.
Yeah. Speaking of, I guess, things to get excited about, I don't know.
We don't have to segue every single time. It's okay. We can just go to the
Speaking
next.
about rating and games, Arc rating.
Speaking of video games.
Speaking of video games, hey, that's what we should change the name of the podcast to. Speaking of video games, if Game Pass is getting a rebrand, so are we. Arc Raiders finally showed us some gameplay, a full reveal of their gameplay. We've seen bits and pieces as they've been in development. Arc Raiders is a sort of like retro-futuristic game about surviving in a robot apocalypse, but it's sort of very 80s themed, Art Deco, a lot of crappily put together weapons and surviving. And we found out through this gameplay reveal that it is a sort of Division meets Escape from Tarkov, kind of with a little bit of Helldivers thrown in there. You're doing PvE, you're fighting these robots as you're trying to survive and make it through the wasteland. But part of the game is going and like getting treasures, but you're playing against other teams of, I guess, 4. I don't know if it could be more than 4, but seemingly 4 people, and just trying to fight over resources and upgrade your stuff. The gameplay reveal is pretty interesting because it's just like a chunk of a mission, and you see like something go wrong, they go investigate this, that, and then whatever. And it kind of reminds me of The Division specifically. Paul, you pointed this out when we were talking about it before the show, that it was very like manicured, like someone is playing the game, but not how anyone would ever play a video game.
Yeah. It's like, check around your corner. Maybe there's loot in this room. Like,
they're on my 6. You ready, team? Roll out.
Yeah, it's like, okay, Optimus Prime. Like,
this is no one's screaming about their bits. So
no one's squad is that organized. Sorry.
Yeah. So gameplay looks really, really cool. Excited about this game. I think it's very interesting looking. I think it's built in Unreal 5 because it looks gorgeous. Paul, what were your thoughts after having seen bits of the gameplay?
I'll be honest. When I saw the trailer, which I believe came out a couple months ago, like during the Summer Games Fest, I wasn't particularly excited. It just kind of felt like another game. But the gameplay, it looks pretty good. The gameplay looks pretty good. Like, one of my favorite genres of game is like the co-op mission based games. So like we're talking Helldivers, we're talking Space Marine, we're talking Deep Rock Galactic, Left 4 Dead. Like, I love those games. I think those are the best games to play with friends because you're usually just playing against PvE, which is nice. So this looks really cool. I think the universe kind of surprised me, as well as the graphics. You mentioned it running on Unreal. Like, the game looks really good. So I think I'd like to see a little bit more, but I definitely made my eyebrows perk up and, consider picking this up. So I know it's scheduled for release in 2025. So I think if they can get the release window right, where they don't have to deal with a lot of competition in whatever window they release in, the game could be successful. But I think this game is about timing, I think. So yeah.
I think it's like, don't release it against a big Call of Duty. Don't release it against Helldivers expansion. Give us somewhere like, probably in April or even like June, and this game will be a huge hit.
Yeah. Or just even if you can release with competition, just not competition in the same genre. Again, it's like what EA has talked about its success with Dragon Age Veilguard. It's like, it's not a perfect game, but the thing is like, there's no other game, there's no other big, the only other RPG that came out this year. Oh God, why am I forgetting the name of it? Phil, you played it.
Big RPG that came out this year?
Yeah. It was earlier in the year. There's like, you get dragon sickness or something, destroys the whole village. You were telling me.
Oh, about. Dragon's Dogma 2.
Dragon's Dogma 2. So it's like, that was the only other real big RPG that came out this year. And so like, they successfully launched in a good window. And I think that's what this game needs to do. All right. Last up on our news list is Mass Effect is apparently getting a TV series. It is already in development at Amazon. It's a little bit, this report comes from IGN. It's a little bit of a news, no news kind of an article where they know it's being worked on, but they have no idea at what stage of development it is in. Is there even a script? Probably not. And so we're talking really early stages here, not like we're going to see a Mass Effect TV show in 2025. I guess the only thing to really talk about here, Phil, is our opinions on how we feel about a Mass Effect TV show coming.
Hopefully there is a script and it's just Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, right? Like, just do that if you're going to do it. But I think
you think you think that's the best angle, is just to copy the games? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, we saw The Last of Us, right? That is the move. Inject some stuff. This game has enough variants that, you could see some different things that you may not have seen. Mm-hmm. You could inject a little bit more, like, Shepard has a drug problem or whatever you want to do to explain
Master
the renegade
Chief has
options.
Sex, whatever.
Yeah. Here's some sweet Master Chief butt for you to enjoy. But I guess ultimately, I do feel like I failed in stopping this, and I might need a time machine. Don't do this one. Maybe let's not do Mass Effect the TV show. It's a great game. We don't need a TV show.
Leave it as a game. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I look, Mass Effect has been in the, is it going to be a TV show? Is it going to be a movie? Like I feel like for the last almost 10 years, like, is there going to be some sort of cinematic version of Mass Effect? I think that the Mass Effect trilogy is so precious to gamers that any alteration or interpretation of that into a TV show is going to piss people off. And so at that point, you're hoping, Amazon's hoping that you're going to get a new generation of people who didn't necessarily play the game to really like the show. And I think, you know, we talk about The Last of Us success, but a lot of people who like The Last of Us TV show have not played The Last of Us games. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think Mass Effect is so precious. Like,
yeah,
go ahead.
To their credit, they did all right with Fallout. They changed a lot of things, but they totally got it right.
Yeah, but the thing about Fallout is that they made their own story for Fallout. And it was incredibly Fallout themed. You saw a bunch of Fallout stuff in there, but they didn't take specific characters. And like the Last of Us has a very set story. And so it's like, and it's also like mostly about two characters. Whereas like Mass Effect is a big universe. It's like, are they going to cast someone as Mordin in Mass Effect and expect gamers to like whoever the fuck they cast? Sorry. Maybe we'll see if I edit that.
We get one. We get one.
We get one. PG-13. You get one.
So it's the perfect choice.
Yes. So like, I think if they do a TV show, or I think that Mass Effect is honestly a better movie idea than it is a TV show. And that way you could like get it the budget it needs for a 2-hour movie, as opposed to trying to, you know, stretch story. I think it would be better served if they did like Mass Effect First Contact, where it's about like humanity, you know, discovering, I believe in Mass Effect lore, they discover the Turians first. And there's the first contact war between the humans and the Turians. And so that way you're not trying to cast Shepard, male or female, and then recreate the Mass Effect storyline. It's like, this is a prequel to the video games where we're going to reference a bunch of Mass Effect stuff and keep it in the universe, but we can also write our own story. So I think that would be the route to go. What do you think of that idea?
I think that we do have a perfect Commander Shepard in Kate Siegel. If you haven't seen Midnight Mass or any of the Mike Flanagan shows, Kate Siegel looks like FemShep and like has the tenacity, I think, to do it.
I gotta look this person up.
But yeah, you gotta check them out or watch their show. That said, yeah, I think it would be interesting. I just feel like a lot of these things, like if you do Gotham. But like we learned from Gotham and other TV shows, I don't like stories that tell us about the story before the most interesting thing happened. You know, like stories that lead up to when Superman puts on the outfit, or stories that lead up to like, now he's Batman. I don't care about that. Show me the most interesting thing, which is, I feel like for Mass Effect, this whole like rediscovering the God, I can't even remember their names.
The mass
big
relays
machine. Well, the mass relays, but also the
Citadel,
who are the machines that are coming to wipe them out.
The Reapers.
Yeah. I feel like that's such an interesting mystery, more so than like because I feel like the First Contact would be a lot of like interesting space stuff, but then a lot of space politics in a way that would be like you're getting ingratiated into the council now.
Sure.
And I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Whatever they do, they're going to do it. And
we're going to complain about it. So, you know.
Hey, Amazon has enough money to throw at it. Yeah, just let it be.
Just leave it alone. Like, you know, I will say, like, I do think Amazon has done a good job with some other space shows. Like, I really like The Expanse on Amazon. But it's just a completely different, I don't know. Anyway, all right, let's move on into our main topic. So Warcraft's 30th anniversary is today, which is crazy. We talked about it at the beginning of the episode. And so with that 30th anniversary, Blizzard came out with some announcements, some exciting, some okay, and some I don't care. Yeah, so we got an announcement for the next major World of Warcraft expansion called World of Warcraft: The War Within. So that's kind of interesting, and it really dumbfounds me that World of Warcraft is still going, but it has always been the most popular MMO. I don't know if it's still on top. I know Final Fantasy has taken some market share, but it's incredible that this game is still going. Did you play World of Warcraft back in the day, Phil?
I definitely played like a couple of hours. I tried to get into it multiple times. Like, oh, you know what? This seems like it would be 100% right up my alley. Like an immersive, long-term game where you're progressing your character, you really feel like a part of the world. Never really clicked with me. Every time I try to engage with it, I just feel so unspecial.
Yeah, I agree. I tried several times to get into it. I had lots of friends who were into it. I remember probably the longest I got was when the game went free to play up to like level 20. But then they had the trap of like you get to level 20 like crazily fast. And then after that, and then you start paying, it's like, all right, back to the normal level progression where you have to do 6 quests to level up once. And you're like, oh. But some other news coming out about it. So World of Warcraft Classic, which is part of the classic trend that we were talking about going on, like with Overwatch Classic coming back and the game that we talked about earlier. Oh my God. Marvel
Rivals?
Fortnite Classic coming
Fortnite.
back. So Warcraft Classic is getting Mists of Pandaria, which was one of the most popular expansions to World of Warcraft. So now you get to play Mists of Pandaria Classic. So that's cool, I guess. And then World of Warcraft 1 and 2 have been shadow drop released. As remasters, not remakes, but remasters of the game. And so if you were big into Warcraft 1 and 2, there are some quality of life improvements. It's now been, some of the structure has been reorganized to run properly on a modern Windows system. So that's nice. But again, it's not a remake. They didn't redo the graphics or anything. They just turned some knobs, adjusted some settings, but it is nice that they did it and they actually released it today instead of it just being an announcement. What else do we have here? Hearthstone is getting a crossover with StarCraft, so I guess we're going to get some StarCraft decks and cards. So are you...
Honestly, I love that. I love that aspect of it.
I think that's
like,
the
StarCraft
most exciting.
And Warcraft. Yeah, getting a little bit of time to play together, and
especially in a card game.
I think that's the venue in which you do it. As a fan of card games myself, as previously stated on our show, I think that's an interesting way to be like, oh, what if this character and this character fought? It's a very nice systemic getting to play with your action figures together. That's pretty interesting. I gotta speak to for a second, Warcraft Classic. When it launched, it was like, hey, here's original... Sick of all those updates? Here's original Warcraft. Enjoy, fool. And then now they're like, so we're up to Warcraft Mists of Pandaria. You remember when Kung Fu Panda showed up? This came out 6 years ago. And now they're basically just at a steady pace behind the original game. Yeah. So you can't really go play Warcraft Classic anymore because you are now playing... Warcraft Mists of Pandaria, which is or Pandora. I don't even Pandaria.
Yes.
I don't know. It's just a very silly concept. I wonder how many people they lose because it's Warcraft Class. It's not Warcraft Classic anymore. It's Warcraft 6 years ago.
Right.
But
that is weird though. That it's just hey, remember the nostalgia from 6 years ago? That. I don't know. That's kind of a stretch. So. What I'm seeing from that announcement and from some of these other announcements is just hey, it's our 30th anniversary. We want to acknowledge that it's our 30th anniversary. We don't really have a lot for you right now. Which like is fair. That's fine. It's just
we know you guys probably want Warcraft 4, and what we're going to tell you is suck a goose egg. It's never happened.
But Warcraft Rumble is coming to PC, Phil.
Thank God. It's just been too long that I've not been able to play Warcraft Rumble on my PC. I've had to play it on the little magical thing that exists in my pocket at all times. I'm watching the ad for Warcraft Rumble right now, and what it shows is a guy sitting down to play World of Warcraft. And then while he's waiting for something in World of Warcraft, he pulls up his phone, which is dead. And then he's like, you know what? I'm going to play Warcraft Rumble on my computer.
I'll be honest. I didn't know Warcraft Rumble existed until today. So,
it's like Castle Crashers or whatever that game is.
Yeah,
but just Warcraft themed.
Yeah, I also I don't know about you. On my computer desk, I have a phone charger. Do you have a phone charger on your computer desk?
Oh, yeah, everyone does. Everyone do.
Oh no, my phone's dead. I better not plug it in.
That's too much extra effort.
What are we
core strength
talking
required
about?
to go from here to here is just crazy.
My phone is plugged in right now, and what are we doing, guys? What are we doing? So that's a little bit silly, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, and that Warcraft has been such a popular franchise for so long. But I'll be honest, I don't know that the next generation really knows what Warcraft is, and I don't know that Warcraft Rumble is going to be the way that they bring people in, and re-releasing World of Warcraft Classic, but now it's Mist of Pandaria. Is gonna bring new people in. I feel like you're just selling the same thing over and over and over and over again. And I would think that people who are fans of Warcraft would get sick of it, but I think they're still making money. So
yeah.
So yeah, but that
I wish I could love something as much as the people who play Warcraft love Warcraft.
Yes. Well, I mean, you love Magic, right? So
that's true.
That might
be.
But
do I love it for 15 years worth of Magic?
I mean, at least they release new decks and new cards and new licensing things. So that's something.
Arguably too often. So, but I'm here for it. So.
If my wallet can keep up. So
yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this week of the GGG Podcast, episode 56. Thank you for listening this week to all of our subscribers and followers out there. And if you haven't already subscribed or followed, please follow us over on YouTube if you want to watch the video version of the podcast. And if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, subscribe to us over on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast. We are getting pretty close to the holiday releases, getting close to Thanksgiving, getting close to Christmas. I know that I have started working on my Game of the Year list. I've actually put it down to pen and paper. I know, so old-fashioned of me. But yeah, I'm excited about that, and I hope you're starting to think about that as well, Phil, of your nominees. Yeah, you got your nominees in your head already?
It's all Astrobot from the top to the bottom.
Best multiplayer game, Astrobot. You invite your friend over, you give him the controller. It's multiplayer.
You watch his face fill with joy.
You experience joy as well. Multiplayer.
Yeah.
It's great.
Boom. Done.
Boom. All right. Have a good one, everybody, and we'll see you next week.